let us all do we can to build a better future.
The whole world has lost its mind over one little interview. The whole world is going crazy because Tucker Carlson had the audacity to interview Putin, a president of a country. Now, in my interview with Larry Sharpe, he brought up some very important points. Sometimes we got to talk to our enemies. Sometimes you got to talk to people you just don't like. Okay, I get it. But the thing is, everyone in corporate media is saying that Tucker's a traitor, he's a villain, he's a Putin puppet, he's a Russian supporter. And no. Did you sit down and watch the interview? I did. Now, we got a couple of highlights from this interview, and I encourage everyone to please follow Tucker Carlson and TCN on their on the respective social media networks, so that way you could see the interview in its full entirety. And to my audience's credit, I know that all of you saw it as well, and I encourage all of you to see it. And each of you, I'm sure, have your own opinions, your own perspectives, and your own thoughts, as you should. But I think we all can universally agree, okay, that was a good interview, and then we move on like normal adults. It's not the end-all, be-all interviews that will shake the foundations of the world. But for the liberals and corporate media and the Democratic establishment, it is their ongoing nightmare because a lot of them still suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. Because with Trump derangement syndrome, symptoms also include being afraid of Russia. Tucker Carlson is an Assad puppet or a Russian stooge, and Tulsi Gabbard is hiding in your closet, and she's going to destroy the Democratic Party. Okay, liberals, Democrats, grow up. So first, I want to pull up this part of the segment. Hey, folks, remember who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline? Remember that was a thing? Huge environmental disaster. Hey, AOC, isn't it something that you're kind of concerned about too?
Who blew up Nord Stream?
It was all of you, my audience members. Hold on. It was all of you. Juan Alba, Miss Witchy Perfect, Soul Construct, Baba Yaga, Forest Dweller, Leora, whoever, Dwayne Vogel, all of you are responsible for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline.
Who blew up Nord Stream?
You for sure.
I was busy that day. Nate, do you have I did not blow up Nord Stream. Thank you, though.
У вас лично, может быть, есть алиби, у вас лично.
You personally may have an alibi, but the CIA has no such alibi.
Do you have evidence that NATO or the CIA did it?
Знаете,
You know, I won't get into details, but people always say in such cases, look for someone who is interested. But in this case, we should not only look for someone who is interested, but also for someone who has capabilities. Because there may be many people interested, but not all of them are capable of sinking to the bottom of the Baltic Sea and carrying out this explosion. These two components should be connected. Who is interested and who is capable of doing it?
But I'm confused. I mean, that's the biggest act of industrial terrorism ever, and it's the largest emission of CO2 in history. Okay, so if you had evidence, and presumably given your security services, your intel services, you would, that NATO, the US, CIA, the West did this, why wouldn't you present it and win a propaganda victory?
Now, the thing is, that is true, propaganda victory. Now, recent developments have shown that it wasn't Russia who did it, and originally the media was saying that Russia was. Just a quick short history lesson. The Nord Stream pipeline was a pipeline from Russia to Europe. Now, that was making Russia money, all right? Now, I'm going to probably pull out my inner Tony Soprano, my inner Boardwalk Empire and The Wire, and that is, if it's making money, why blow it up? Who benefits from a pipeline destroyed? Well, not Russia, because they were making money off of it. Don't want to make any kind of accusations, but maybe there might be other powers that wouldn't appreciate that and thus want to control the monopoly, because last I checked, when that pipeline got blown up, kind of impacted a lot of European countries that go through far more brutal winters than Chicago does. Just throwing it out there.
In the war of propaganda, it is very difficult to defeat the United States because the United States controls all the world's media and many European media. The ultimate beneficiary of the biggest European media are American financial institutions. Don't you know that? So it is possible to get involved in this work, But it is cost prohibitive, so to speak. We can simply shine the spotlight on our sources of information, and we will not achieve results. It is clear to the whole world what happened, and even American analysts talk about it directly.
Yes, they're now talking about it. Originally, there was only a brave handful of people on corporate media who then were not allowed to go back onto the establishment media, and only a few people in independent media that had the courage to say, "Wait a minute, how did this pipeline get destroyed?" And it's still a large environmental disaster. Democrats and a lot of those activist groups, you should kind of look into this because the ecosystem surrounding that pipeline is forever damaged because of the toxic material being spewed out from that pipeline. It was natural gas, and the long-term effects have yet to be seen, but this has also led to an energy crisis, a rise of inflation, and impacting not only the European Union, but the whole world. Every action has a consequence and reaction. And so thus, it is important that we do address the propaganda, not only in corporate media, but overall how it impacts the world and how it controls the narrative. When people say that there isn't propaganda here in America, I mean, are you paying close attention? Because it's designed to look that way. Hollywood is designed to give you propaganda. The media is designed to keep you asleep. And our politicians are designed to fool you. Take a look back all the times growing up when you've been subjected to propaganda. It's done very insidiously here in America. Now, we've seen it in dictatorships and tyrants and how their propaganda is spewed out. It's up front. It's in your face. Ours, it comes in a nice, cold Coca-Cola bottle, which you sip and enjoy.
Correctly. It's true.
Yes, but here's a question you may be able to answer. You worked in Germany, famously. The Germans clearly know that their NATO partner did this, but it damaged their economy greatly. It may never recover. Why are they being silent about it? That's very confusing to me. Why wouldn't the Germans say something about it?
Ну, меня это тоже удивляет.
This also confuses me. But today's German leadership is guided by the interests of the collective West rather than its national interests. Otherwise, it is difficult to explain the logic of their action or inaction. After all, it is not only about Nord Stream 1, which was blown up, and the Nord Stream 2 was damaged, but one pipe is safe and sound, and gas can be supplied to Europe through it. But Germany does not open it. We are ready, please. There's another route through Poland called Yamal Europe, which also allows for large flow. Poland has closed it, but Poland packs from the German hand. It receives money from the pan-European funds, and Germany is the main donor to these pan-European funds. Germany feeds Poland to a certain extent, and they close their route to Germany. Why? I don't understand. Ukraine, to which the Germans supply weapons and give money. Germany is the second sponsor of the United States in terms of financial aid to Ukraine. There are two gas routes through Ukraine. They simply closed one route, the Ukrainians. Open the second route and please get gas from Russia. They do not open it. Why don't the Germans say, look, guys, we give you money and weapons. Open up the valve, please. Let the gas from Russia pass through for us. We're buying liquefied gas at exorbitant prices in Europe, which brings the level of our competitiveness and economy in general down to zero. Do you want us to give you money? Let us have the decent existence. Make money for our economy, because this is where the money we give you comes from.
Hey, it's all about money. It's all about the dollars. Every time I watch Boardwalk Empire, Sopranos, The Wire, it all comes back down to the dollars and who can control what so they can get enough squeeze. The thing is, we're ruled over by sociopaths, and Putin's going to give us little thoughts on the U.S. dollar. And overall, why things aren't going to be too peachy for our economy. I think it's important that we look at this and hear his perspective. Now, It is rather interesting to bring this up here, where Putin says the Ukraine war is an attempt to stop what the CIA started in 2014. If this triggers people, look, too bad, so sad. We're in this war, and billions of dollars have been wasted. Hundreds of billions of dollars have been wasted on this war. And Donald Trump is correct. I just want people to stop dying. It's not a controversial statement. I just want people to stop dying.
As the Americans requested, Yanukovych did use neither the armed forces nor the police, yet the armed opposition committed a coup in Kiev.
Провела госпиталь.
What is that supposed to mean?
Как это понимать?
Who do you think you are?
Вы кто такие?
I wanted to ask the then US leadership.
With the backing of whom?
При поддержке ЦРУ, конечно.
With the backing of CIA, of course.
Которые, как я понимаю,
The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand.
хотя это серьезно.
Tucker, you federale? Huh? You with the feds, Tuck? Damn, Putin got you. Tucker's face is frozen like that. Like, uh-oh. Come on, man. Don't be telling people I was with the feds, man. What's wrong with you, dude? What's wrong with you?
We should thank God.
You know what? Hold on. I'm sorry. That's what you call a big old oof. And when you get a big old oof like that, it's only requires with one response and one response alone. So, folks, yes, Tucker, as much as I like your show, and I do find it interesting that liberals are panicking and crying because, you had an interview, that doesn't keep you protected or safe from getting an oof. Because when you get an oof, you got to take it. You got to take it how you get it. And oofs happen to us all. And when you get an oof, and let me just see if I get this video up. When you get an oof, and I want to give a shout out to Miguel H. Yeah, you mad dog genius, you. Hold on. We're rind here, and here we go. Oh, don't think on me too much, computer. Don't think on me too much. Foolish computer. Hang on. We'll restart that again.
Americans requested, Yanukovych did use neither the armed forces nor the police, yet the armed opposition committed a coup in Kiev.
Провела госпиталь.
What is that supposed to mean?
Как это понимать?
Who do you think you are?
Вы кто такие?
I wanted to ask the then US leadership.
With the backing of whom?
При поддержке ЦРУ, конечно.
With the backing of CIA, of course.
Которые, как я понимаю,
The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, Tucker, but you got to get this.
Oof. 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 Oof.
Everyone gets an oof. I'm sorry. That's how you know Hardlands Media is consistent. Everyone gets an oof.
Хотя это серьезно.
We should thank God they didn't let you in. Although it is a serious organization. I understand. My former vis-a-vis in the sense that I served in the first main directorate, Soviet Union's intelligence service. They have always been our opponents. A job is a job.
Но технически они все сделали правильно.
Technically, they did everything right. They achieved their goal of changing the government. However, from political standpoint, it was a colossal mistake. Surely it was political leadership's miscalculation. They should have seen what it would evolve into.
Итак, в 2014
So,
году
in
открыли
2008, the doors of NATO were opened for
В
Ukraine.
2014 году
In
провели
2014, there was a coup. They started persecuting.
Mastermind Hour with the comment. Tucker just realized that there's a thick folder in Moscow with his name on it. Folks, that's how you know you made it. It's sort of like, uh-oh. I hope Putin lets me walk out of this country alive.
Those who did not accept the coup, and it was indeed a coup. They created a threat to Crimea, which we had to take under our protection. They launched the war in Donbass in 2014 with the use of aircraft and artillery against civilians. This is when it all started. There is a video of aircraft attacking Donetsk from above. They launched a large-scale military operation, then another one. When they failed, they started to prepare the next one. All this against the background of military development of this territory and opening of NATO's doors.
освоение этой территории. И открытие дверей.
How could we not express concern over what was happening? From our side, this would have been a culpable negligence. That's what it would have been.
Вот что это было бы такое. Просто
It's just that the US political leadership pushed us to the line we could not cross, because doing so could have ruined Russia itself.
потому что это разрушало саму Россию. И потом мы не могли бросить наших единоверцев.
Besides, we could not leave our brothers in faith, in fact, a part of Russian people, in the face of this war
под
machine.
эту военную машину.
What was the but that was 8 years before the current conflict started. So what was the trigger for you? What was the moment where you decided you had to do this?
Now, look, all wars are a waste. But the thing is, a lot of these conflicts could be avoided. And unfortunately, the reason why we are in these current conflicts is because of previous other wars that have taken place. There's always a consequence and reaction to every single war that has happened. And if we have to look at our current world, we can pinpoint the Second World War as the one that helped shape our world as it is today because of the aftermath and fallout from it. And then all the other previous wars, the wars that took place during the Cold War. And yes, while I understand the Cold War was between the Soviet Union and the United States, we have to remember that there were all those proxy wars, Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, and so many others, so many other military interventions. These same military interventions laid the foundations for other future conflicts to take place. Economic instability, which caused for more civil wars to happen, not only in Central and South America, but on the continent of Africa, also in the Middle East, and all around the world. And this applies to every other nation too, because there's no such thing as a perfect government or a perfect country. All countries have skeletons in their closet. All countries have previous grievances with one another. So let's hear what the corporate media refuses to acknowledge about why Russia, at least from Putin's point of view, intervened and annexed Crimea in the first place. Because everything has a beginning, folks. It always has a beginning.
Ну, спровоцировал конфликт изначально.
Initially, it was the coup in Ukraine that provoked the conflict.
Кстати говоря,
By the way, back then the representatives of 3 European countries, Germany, Poland, and France, arrived. They were the guarantors of the signed agreement between the government of Yanukovych and the opposition. They signed it as guarantors. Despite that, the opposition committed a coup, and all these countries pretended that they didn't remember that they were guarantors of the peaceful settlement.
Никто не вспоминает
They just threw it in the stove right away, and nobody recalls that.
этот договор между
I don't know if the US know anything about the agreement between the opposition and the
вернуть
authorities
всё.
and its 3 guarantors who, instead of bringing this whole situation back in the political field,
Хотя смысла в
supported
этом
the coup.
не было. Никакого.
Although it was meaningless, believe me,
Янукович совсем согласился.
because President Yanukovych agreed to all conditions. He was ready to hold an early election, which he had no chance of winning, frankly speaking.
Зачем, Господи,
Everyone knew that.
жертвы?
Then why the
Зачем
coup?
угрозы
Why
для-
the victims?
для-
Why threatening Crimea?
Зачем
Why
началась
launching an
операция
operation in
на
Donbass?
Донбассе?
This I do
Вот
not
этого я не
understand.
понимаю. Вот в
That
этом
is exactly
расчёт.
what the
Он довёл
miscalculation
свою
is.
реализацию.
CIA did its job to
А,
complete
по-моему,
the coup.
один из замов
I
госсекретаря
think one of the
сказал,
deputy
что
secretaries of state said
миллиардов.
that it cost a large sum of money, almost 5 billion.
Колоссальные. Зачем
But the
это
political
делать?
mistake
Всё
was
можно было
colossal.
сделать, на самом деле, то же
Why
самое.
would they have to do that? All this could have been done legally, without victims, without military action, without losing Crimea.
Пальцем не пошевелить.
We would have never considered to even lift a finger if it hadn't been for the bloody developments on Maidan.
Потому что мы согласились с тем, что
Because we agreed with the fact that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, our borders should be along the borders of former Union's republics. We agreed to that, but we never agreed to NATO's expansion, and moreover, we never agreed that Ukraine would be in NATO.
базы НАТО.
And the thing is, that's one of the many reasons why many NATO countries, even though they say we should put Ukraine in, there's been that hesitant push, or is it that step away of having Ukraine be part of NATO, because that's going to intensify the conflict even further. And this administration, if it knew better, would probably rein in the president and say, hey, we're not going to have Ukraine as part of NATO. But there's always been those slip ups by people of the administration, the vote blue no matter who sycophants, and of course, anyone else that thinks that poking a conflict with another global superpower is a good idea. Because we all know Russia has nukes, America has nukes, and if this war intensifies even further, well, it's mushroom clouds in the skies, and hey, we're all vaporized. So it's been nice knowing you, but see how foolish this is, this whole war. Everything that's been involved in it, it always has a beginning, and we have to look none other than under the Obama administration when all of this started to really be turned up to 11.
Без всяких разговоров с нами.
We did not agree to NATO bases there without any discussion with us. For decades, we kept asking, don't do this, don't do that.
В последних событиях. Ну, во-первых,
And what triggered the latest events?
руководство Украины заявило,
Firstly, the current Ukrainian leadership declared that it would not implement the Minsk agreements, which had been signed, as you know, after the events of 2014 in Minsk, or the plan of peaceful settlement.
That is the freedom fighter Zelensky everyone's talking about. Remember when Nancy Pelosi was so happy when she was walking down the halls of Congress holding the Ukrainian flags, like, it's so nice to hear him speak. And then she does this, shaking the Ukrainian flag like this. I tell you what, at least my respect kind of grew just a little bit for Nancy when she showed some emotion. When she was going to hit Medea Benjamin. That was funny. She showed some emotion at that Code Pink protest. It was the chef's kiss. All right. I couldn't get an image far more funnier than Nancy wanted to throw down. Nancy joining Fight Club. Who would have put that on your bingo card for 2024? It wasn't on mine.
In Donbass was set forth.
нет, руководство,
But no, the current Ukrainian leadership, foreign minister, all other officials, and then president himself said that they don't like anything about the Minsk agreements.
иными словами, исполнять не собираются.
In other words, they were not going to implement it.
Прямо сказали, что подписывали уже
A year or a year and a half ago, former leaders of Germany and France said openly to the whole world
это соглашение Минска.
that they indeed signed the Minsk agreements, but they never intended to implement them. They simply led us by the nose.
Was there anyone for you to talk to? Did you call a U.S. President, Secretary of State, and say, if you keep militarizing Ukraine with NATO forces, this is going to be we're going to act?
Мы постоянно об этом говорим. Мы постоянно об этом говорим. Мы обращались
We talked about this all the time. We addressed the United States and European countries' leadership to stop these developments immediately, to implement the Minsk agreements. Frankly speaking, I didn't know how we were going to do this, but I was ready to implement them. These agreements were complicated for Ukraine. They included lots of elements of those Donbas territories' independence. That's true. However, I was absolutely confident, and I'm saying this to you now. I honestly believe that if we managed to convince the residents of Donbas, and we had to work hard to convince them to return to the Ukrainian statehood, then gradually the wounds would start to heal. When this part of territory reintegrated itself into common social environment, when the pensions and social benefits were paid again, all the pieces would gradually fall into place. No, nobody wanted that. Everybody wanted to resolve the issue by military force only. But we could not let that happen. And the situation got to the point when the Ukrainian side announced, no, we will not do anything. They also started preparing for military action. It was they who started the war in 2014. Our goal is to stop this war. And we did not start this war in 2022. This is an attempt to stop it.
I want that to play in its full entirety and not interrupt it because it is important to hear this leader's perspective. Now, do I think this war could have been avoided by both sides? Yes. Was there probably an opportunity of peace to maybe avoid the conflict as a whole? Yeah, true. There was an opportunity. However, what plays into human conflict is ego, pride, and money, resources, control, influence, power. The aftermath of previous other conflicts and regional disputes, regional differences, is what causes many of these wars. Cooler heads should have prevailed. At least the United States should have been more open to diplomacy and using its global weight to have more diplomatic talks. But alas, that's not the case. While it's not fully connected to this story, it does play some relevance. Money in politics. Money in politics controls the American government. The military-industrial complex, big oil. Do you really think that they won't invest all into another country to have a proxy war? They will do that because that's how these countries, or at least our politicians in this country, operate. And of course, by being antagonistic, eventually people are going to stand up. That's how it looks. But I want to talk about our economy. I want to talk about our overall situation where the dollar is brought up. While this might make you uncomfortable, and sorry, folks, I guess the economy is just kind of screwed. Let's just hear this perspective.
Вы знаете, это одна из грубейших
You know,
стратегических
to use the dollar as a tool of foreign policy struggle is one of the biggest strategic mistakes made by the US political leadership.
доллар – это основа основ могущества США.
The dollar is the cornerstone of the United States power. I think everyone understands very well that no matter how many dollars are printed, they are quickly dispersed all over the world.
По-моему, 3%, примерно 3-4, что ли. Вот, приемлемо для США абсолютно.
Inflation in the United States is minimal. It's about 3 or 3.4%, which is, I think, totally acceptable for the US. But they won't stop printing. What does the debt of $33 trillion tell us about? It is about the emission.
Как только политическое руководство приняло решение использовать доллар в качестве инструмента политической борьбы,
Nevertheless, it is the main weapon used by the United States to preserve its power across the world.
I recommend this book, Diary of an Economic Hitman. It goes into detail how the United States bankrupt other countries or control their economy. We should look into the fact of how our sanctions have systematically caused countries to have civil wars or coups. And thus, in turn, we put in our own puppet tyrants in, our own dictators in. Not a democracy, but dictators. Dictators who rule for life, tyrants, kings, all of that. Prime example, hey, before Iran became, had the Islamic government, there was a king, the Shah of Iran. But hold on. Did you all know before the Shah of Iran took over that there was a national government in Iran that was actually trying to get on its own 2 feet, use its oil resources to actually uplift its own people until British oil companies and American oil companies and British Secret Services and the CIA decided to team up, work together, and overthrow that national government and put in place the Shah of Iran, a dictator, a tyrant, who would be our good little boy and follow all of our orders until there was a revolution that took place there in Iran. But that's not the only example. It's been all over the world where we've used the dollar, our sanctions, and our economic might to control other countries. It's rather depressing when you think about it, because we are a democracy, at least in theory, a republic. But yet we're using our own influence to tell other countries how they should run themselves. I know for a fact that if anybody ever tried to do that here in America, Americans would be screaming and foaming at the mouth. How dare another country tell us what to do or how to live? How dare they control our economy? But the truth is, it already happened. It just didn't come in the form of alien invasion or robots or a secret evil country with its troops flying in and parachuting in over cities. No, it happened when our own Supreme Court opened the gates for dark money to influence our elections, and thus our politicians writing laws and legislation to benefit their donors. We've already been invaded, and our own dollar is being used against us. Tell me, folks, how's your dollar working out for you? Is everything all easy for you? No, it's not.
As soon as the political leadership decided to use the US dollar as a tool of political struggle, a blow was dealt to this American power. I would not like to use any strong language, but it is a stupid thing to do and a grave mistake.
Все смотрят на то, что происходит, да, и начинают искать возможности.
Look at what is going on in the world. Even the United States allies are now downsizing their dollar reserves. Seeing this, everyone starts looking for ways to protect themselves. But the fact that the United States applies restrictive measures to certain countries, such as placing restrictions on transactions, freezing assets, etc., causes grave concern and sends a signal to the whole world. What did we have here? Until 2022, about 80% of Russian foreign trade transactions were made in US dollars and euros. US dollars accounted for approximately 50% of our transactions with third countries, while currently it is down to 13%. It wasn't us who banned the use of the US dollar.
США приняли решение ограничить наши расчеты в долларах.
We had no such intention. It was decision of the United States to restrict our transactions in US dollars. I think it is complete foolishness from the point of view of the interests of the United States itself.
Now, you're willing to bet that Rachel Maddow's going to do a 2-hour segment on how Putin's wrong about the dollar and why sanctions do work. Come on. I know how BSDNC operates. If it's not going to be Rachel, it's going to be Morning Blow and Mika. It's going to be all those people on CNN, in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, on ABC News, on CBS. Everyone is going to be quoting, how could Tucker Carlson just sit there and hear Putin badmouth the dollar and say how sanctions don't work? Well, no, sanctions don't work. All what you're doing is hurting the people and causing resentment of the people towards you, not towards the government. That's not how sanctions are the Uno reverse card. It's not the end-all, be-all button. But I guess when you are a global superpower, you have a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a nail.
And its taxpayers, as it damages the US economy, undermines the power of the United States across the world. By the way, our transactions in yuan accounted for about 3%. Today, 34% of our transactions are made in rubles, and about as much, a little over 34% in yuan. Why did the United States do this? My only guess is self-conceit. They probably thought it would lead to full collapse, but nothing collapsed. Moreover, other countries, including oil producers, are thinking of and already accepting payments for oil in yuan. Do you even realize what is going on or not?
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry, folks. That requires another. Sorry, our economy isn't as strong as it used to be. It's another. Oof. 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 It's another oof.
Everyone in the United States realized this. What are you doing? You are cutting yourself off. All experts say this. Ask any intelligent and thinking person in the United States what the dollar means for the US.
But
You're killing it with your own hands.
Oof. 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 Now, hold on. We got another oof. Another oof. We can't forget this one. This one was pure gold. Pure gold and outstanding. Hey, Canada. I don't know why you're trying to come at our title for the world heavyweight champion of doing stupid things. Remember last year when you guys, when the Canadian Parliament honored that Nazi? Remember that? Well, Petrovich Farm remembers, and so does Putin.
I say that Ukrainians are part of the one Russian people. They say, no, we are a separate people. Okay, fine. If they consider themselves a separate people, they have the right to do so, but not on the basis of Nazism, the Nazi ideology.
would you be satisfied with the territory that you have now?
Нет, закончим. Вы же задали вопрос по неонацизму. денацификации.
I will finish answering the question. You just asked a question about neo-Nazism and denazification.
Замалчивается на Западе.
Look,
Damn. Sorry, Tucker. That's another.
Уф, 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 уф.
He said, hold on. Let me answer your first question.
the president of Ukraine visited Canada. The story is well known, but being silenced in the Western countries.
Спикер парламента.
The Canadian Parliament introduced a man who, as the Speaker of the Parliament said, fought against the Russians during the World War II. Well, who fought against the Russians during the World War II? Hitler and his accomplices.
You gotta wonder, like, yeah, he fought against the Russians in World War II. Huh. Well, there were the Allied powers. There was the France, Great Britain, America. There was the resistance forces in France, of course. There was the, resistance forces in China, the resistance forces in occupied Europe, and they were fighting against the Germans. And then the Soviet Union was our allies too. So, somebody in Canada, in the Canadian Parliament, or somebody made an oopsie. Someone didn't think that through. Like, wait a minute. If he was fighting against the Russians, and the Russians were our allies, or the Soviets were our allies in the Second World War, who were they? Oh, dear God. Canada, stop coming for our heavyweight championship, man. We're the world heavyweight champ. You guys are trying to come after it. Do you really want this belt? Do you really want this world heavyweight championship belt? There's a lot of responsibility that comes with this belt.
It turned out that this man served in the SS troops. He personally killed Russians, Poles, and Jews. The SS troops consisted of Ukrainian nationalists who did this dirty work. The president of Ukraine stood up with the entire Parliament of Canada and applauded this man. How can this be imagined? The president of Ukraine himself, by the way, is a Jew by nationality.
Hold on. I'm sorry, but that's another.
Oof, oof, oof.
You come for the oof, you stay for the analysis, you hear the commentary. That's what we love here at Hardlands Media. Sorry, Tucker.
Really, my question is, what do you do about it? I mean, Hitler's been dead for 80 years. Nazi Germany no longer exists. And so, true. And so, I think what you're saying is you want to extinguish or at least control Ukrainian nationalism. But how? How do you do that?
Вот послушайте меня. Ваш вопрос очень тонкий.
Listen to me. Your question is very subtle, and I can tell you what I think. Do not take offense.
Of course.
Tucker, man. Hey, listen, I actually sent an invite to Tucker. I sent a private message and email to have him on the show. Just for confirmation that you're still alive. Let us know. Let us know, buddy. Let us know you're still alive, man. Because, Putin don't play, man. Putin don't play.
Казалось бы, тонкий. Он очень противный, этот вопрос.
This question appears to be subtle. It is quite pesky.
Значит,
Tucker's like, oh, crap. There's going to be like a guy who's knocking the door like, political police. Mr. Carlson, come with us. That's not a perfect Russian accent, and don't come after me, Putin, okay? I'll try and improve my Russian sometime later.
You say Hitler has been dead for so many years, 80 years. But his example lives on. People who exterminated Jews, Russians, and Poles are alive. And the president, the current president of today's Ukraine, applauds him in the Canadian Parliament, gives a standing ovation. Can we say that we have completely uprooted this ideology if what we see is happening today? That is what denazification is in our understanding. We have to get rid of those people who maintain this concept and support this practice and try to preserve it. That is what denazification is. That is what we mean.
Right. Mike.
Oh, Rachel Maddow and everybody else at BSD. She's like, how dare he call us out?
Oof. Oof. Oof.
Miguel H., you madman, you crazy person. Thank you so much for this gift of a video. All right. It's perfect. It's perfect in every way. But now it's also important to bring up this other concept here too, where Tucker asked Putin about a jailed Wall Street journalist. Let's go ahead and bring this up here.
I just got to ask you one last question, and that's about Evan Gershkovich, who's the Wall Street Journal reporter. He's 32, and he's been in prison for almost a year. And I just want to ask you directly, if as a sign of your decency, you...
Now, I am impressed that Tucker did ask this question, because the thing is, you know, probably all of corporate media are going to dismiss this part where Tucker was asking about this Wall Street Journal who's in prison. But also, we have to remember that there are other journalists that are in prison, even American journalists and even at whistleblowers that are imprisoned by their own government. I mean, you know, remember Donziger? Remember first name Julian, last name A, who's an Australian citizen in the Belmarsh prison in Great Britain? Or don't forget the exile of Edward Snowden and so many other people who have heroically spoken out by Western governments. Now, the thing is, let's listen to what Putin has to say about this.
would be willing to release him to us and we'll bring him back to the United States.
We have done so many gestures of goodwill out of decency that I think we have run out of them. We have never seen anyone reciprocate to us in a similar manner. However, in theory, we can say that we do not rule out that we can do that if our partners take reciprocal steps.
What makes this different is the guy's obviously not a spy, he's a kid. And maybe he was breaking your law in some way, but he's not a super spy. And everybody knows that. And he's being held hostage in exchange, which is true. With respect, it's true. And everyone knows it's true. So maybe he's in a different category. Maybe it's not fair to ask for, somebody else in exchange for letting him out. Maybe it degrades Russia to do that.
He was receiving classified, confidential information, and he did it covertly.
I mean, this is a 32-year-old newspaper reporter.
He committed something different. He's not just a journalist. I reiterate, he's a journalist who was secretly getting confidential information. I do not rule out that the person you refer to, Mr. Gershkovich, may return to his motherland. By the end of the day, it does not make any sense to keep him in prison in Russia.
I hope you let him out.
Okay. Well, to Tucker's credit, he asked that question, and there's a lot more highlights, but I want to at least say this. If you want to see the full interview, please go and follow and check it out on his social media. It's a 2-hour-long interview. I listened to it not once, but twice last night. And of course, when I wake up in the morning and I, do my routine and setting up the show, listening to it, taking down notes, and at least getting some highlight clips so at least we could talk about this and give our analysis and commentary. And I'm 100% certain that all my colleagues in independent media will be doing the same thing, showing different clips and different perspectives. But for you, my audience, if you've seen it already or if you haven't, please check it out. And if you've seen it again, listen again one more time so you can make the proper analysis and thoughts. And each of us have to come away with our own conclusions. My overall thought is this. Tucker did a interview with a world leader, as what anybody who should do, has a large social media platform, who covers media, gives analysis and commentary. This is nothing special. I mean, he did his job. But because in today's hypercharged, oversensitive, snowflake, cancel culture media landscape that we are in, all of corporate media, from MSNBC, CNN, the Democratic establishment, all those people who are the vote blue no matter who sycophants are viewing this interview as what? As treasonous, as villainous. And no, it is not. Tucker Carlson did an interview with a world leader. That's it. That's what any other journalist or commentator or pundit has done in the past. This isn't anything new. We've seen this before. In fact, dare I say it, controversial statement in a 3, 2, 1. Throughout all the history of the media landscape, at least especially when I was born, and living through this up until now, because I don't know when I will one day disappear from this world, but I do know this. I've seen journalists and commentators and pundits interview far more evil and vile people than Putin. I know. If that's a shocker to the liberal think tanks out there or the vote blue no matter who sycophants, too bad. Too bad. It's true, So, I'm not on board with the censorship or cancel culture towards Tucker Carlson. I think that anyone that's trying to suppress him or come after him or try and deplatform him, AOC, remember how you said deplatforming works? No. He did his job. You don't have to like Tucker Carlson, but he did his job. I just want to pull up one last final video here where he just gives his thoughts of overall the aftermath of that interview and, well, the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
I'm just trying to assess this rationally. It's interesting that he's willing to say, yeah, I want some kind of settlement. And the final thing I'll say is that if you're wondering who the lunatics are, U.S. officials have said on the record and have said to me and are telling a bunch of people that part of the terms have to be Russia giving up Crimea. And without getting into the whole history of Crimea, here are the facts. It's, the home of Russia's warm water fleet. It's got a Russian population. They had a referendum. It chose Russia. It's part of Russia. It's where Russian wine comes from. So you can like that or not like it, but the fact is Putin would go to war, nuclear war, if it came down to Crimea. So and by the way, Crimea was in Russian hands at the beginning of this war. So it's like, if you really think that a condition of peace is that Putin's going to give up Crimea, then you're like a lunatic, and they are. I mean, they want a weak leadership in Russia, and the question is, why would you want that?
And there's a lot more to that, but I encourage all of you to please follow Tucker Carlson on his social media. Please check it out. Give your own thoughts and come away with it with your own opinions. But know this. Anyone that's trying to say that this is an interview that's going to stir things up in the election cycle for 2024, no, it's not. There's going to be something else, and then something after that, and something after that. Now, I want to give a huge shout out to my colleagues in independent media who've given their own thoughts and analysis, and each of them are going to give their own perspectives. But I think we all can universally agree that when you host an independent media network or a platform in which you have guests and different people on your show, you're supposed to interview them. You're supposed to talk to them. That's show running 101. That's how you do a good show. That's how you do good commentary. And that's also how you get more people to check out your show and see your perspective. This isn't anything new. And the fact that there are so many liberals melting down, it tells me one thing. Maybe this isn't the business for you. Maybe you shouldn't be on social media. Maybe you lack the mental maturity to assess and see that the world has different perspectives and points of view. Yes, I have my biases. That's very true, as do you, my audience. But the point is, a well-rounded adult can look at things and say, okay, I see that perspective. I see that point of view. This was a very interesting interview. Here are my thoughts on it. And then guess what? We move on, as we all do and as we all should. So if you want to be someone who's on board with cancel or censor or silence anybody that's different than you or does things differently or does things that shake you to your very core, have a cup of tea. Relax. I encourage you, my audience, to see the full interview that Tucker Carlson did with Vladimir Putin and come away with your own thoughts, as you should.